One of Newton's own came back to the city with a silver medal from the Rio Olympics. Gevvie Stone is a two-time Olympic rower and placed 7th at the Games in London and earned a silver medal in Rio. She was raised in Newton, is a Princeton University alum, as well as a Tufts University graduate. Gevvie, it's great to have you join us. Thank you for coming in, and congratulations.
Thanks for having me.
Again, congratulations. It's unbelievable accomplishment in Rio. So can you take us there? What was the village like, and what are some of the highlights?
I think from the moment we landed, I think most of us were surprised at how everything was running. We were kind of expecting the worst.
Yeah, because here we were told all
the
about
media
the horror.
was really over-exaggerating, I think, and it's too bad because I think Rio did over-exceed expectations. I mean, maybe it's better not to have expectations because we were all pleasantly surprised, but Rio definitely over-exceeded expectations. The things that happened were things that were totally out of their control, like having wind on the course. It was a weather system. It's usually not windy in August. There's nothing they can do about it. Right. But the course was totally fair, which was amazing. The food at the course was pretty good. There was the rest area, the boat racks were there. They had everything that at the course was as it should be, as you expect it to be. The village itself, you could tell some of it was done last minute, and the USOC I know had done some work cleaning up our building before we arrived. When we arrived, I mean, it's Spartan, but that makes sense. They're only people, we're living there for 2 weeks. There's no point in furnishing it nicely, really. And it was perfectly comfortable. It was definitely all that we needed. We had each condo, like group of buildings, had a really nice swimming pool, which we didn't get to take advantage of until after we were done racing, but it was nice to have once that was over. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So your first race, the race with the wind.
Yeah.
Can you take us a little bit through that?
So funny enough, when we launched, it was flat and the wind was starting to pick up. So within the 45 minutes between like shoving off the dock and at the start line, the wind picked up tremendously, and we could see it happen as we were warming up. The wind in Rio, that one was a cross tailwind, so it was coming from the area of the start line, and there was a big wall with the city at the start. So when you were warming up near the start line, it seemed protected and fine, and then as you went down the course, you realized that things were going to get messy. The warm-up zone only went 700 meters maybe, so we couldn't tell how bad it was going to get. We knew that it was going to get worse.
Right.
And I knew that because of that, I really had to take advantage of the first 500 meters or so when it was rowable.
Okay.
I managed to do that, and the water in the first 500 was fine. In the second 500, it was bad Boston Basin water, but things that I've gone out and practiced in, and I think that's where I really, thank goodness for that, because that's where I got quite a bit of lead on everyone else. Then in the first 500, it became survival rowing. I mean, there were waves that were just picking my boat up and turning it 45 degrees, and then you had to just correct to stay in your own lane.
So
I was in the wrong lane at points. I was just thinking, get the blades in, get the blades out. And especially get the blades out, because as the waves would turn you, my oar would get trapped underneath the wave, and I almost went swimming twice, was sure that I was going in, going over. And then in the last 250, it became okay again, and that was just a race to the line. It's kind of amazing that after all that bad water and a race that's so long, it was actually a very tight margin between me and the Dane. There are really funny pictures of other rowers as well, like the Irish single. Our trainer captured a video of her, and she's just rowing with one oar because the wave turned her so much that she just had to stop rowing with one side and row with the other to get back in her lane.
Wow, unbelievable.
So, it was survival rowing. It was the worst when the women's single was out there, which is almost funny because we're the slowest race in the least stable boat, but whatever.
You made it through.
Y'all got through it.
Oh my goodness. So what would you say for you was the highlight of Rio? If you had to pick one moment.
Being on the podium, definitely. I think when I was a kid imagining the Olympics, I mean, I wanted to go to the Olympics. I mean, as a figure skater originally, that was definitely not going to happen, not even close. But I think the things you see are opening, closing ceremonies, and then being on the podium. And so many athletes go to the Olympics and you get to race and you don't get on the podium, and I didn't really believe it could happen, and maybe until I stood up there. I knew it was an achievable goal, but hadn't let myself imagine actually being on that podium, and it was just incredible. I mean, I was a huge ball of emotions, smiling, crying, laughing, everything. It was unbelievable.
Wow. So you mentioned when you were a kid, you wanted to go to the Olympics. I know you grew up in an elite household. Your father was an almost Olympian at the Moscow boycotted year. Your mother was an Olympian. What was that like? Was there a lot of pressure growing up to row or become an elite rower?
Yeah, they were really good about it. I think I was aware that they were rowers because we went to Head of the Charles every year and hung out with their college friends, and it was just a part of our life. And they had USA gear or this or that. But when it came time for me, when I was exposed to rowing in high school, my school had a rowing program, and they let me make the decision on my own. I had played soccer and lacrosse in middle school, and I chose to do both of those freshman year, and they didn't object. And they really let me realize that I was bad at soccer and probably should switch to rowing if I wanted to be good at something. And I think making that choice on my own allowed me to fall in love with the sport. I think especially when you're a teenager and your parents force you to do something, the chances that you enjoy it are slim.
Yes.
Even if you do like it, you're inclined not to like it just to prove a point. And I think they let me find rowing on my own, and because of that, I was able to enjoy it right away.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, they did a good job with that.
And so your dad was also your coach. How did you come to that decision, and what was that like? Were there ever days where you doubted having your own father?
Oh yeah, I fired him a few times, definitely. So my mom actually was my first coach in high school.
Okay.
She started coaching Windsor before I started rowing there. So it's kind of bookended, mom and then dad at the end. My dad, when I moved to Boston to come to med school in the fall of 2008, he convinced me, I wasn't sure I wanted to keep rowing, was really hesitant about the whole thing, hadn't made the Beijing team, and really had lost all my confidence as a rower. And he convinced me, I'd gotten a single for graduation that I hadn't rowed for college graduation. He convinced me to sign up for a bunch of fall ahead races and said, come out with me on weekends, we'll row, do it for fun, whatever. And so I did, and I was entering these fall races and like killing everyone. I mean, some of these fall races had about 3 entries, and it was me and then 2 like novice freshmen from Massachusetts. It wasn't really a fair fight, but it was still fun to win. It didn't matter at that point. And it became, he went from a training partner, and then we'd think about, okay, if I am going to keep rowing, what's my training plan look like? So we'd sit down every once a week and have a discussion about what I wanted to do that week in terms of workouts. And then he began doing some logistical stuff.
And at this point you were in medical school.
In medical school.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't even think he came to trials with me my first year in 2009. I raced, I didn't win, couldn't race that summer anyway, but went for the experience. I think the first time he came to trials was 2010, and I did win. And it was just a building thing. I mean, he gave horrible pep talks at first. We realized that he doesn't give good pep talks, and so now I have one of my master's guys who I row with sends me an email before every race with the necessary pep talk, because my dad has a lot of strengths, but that is not one of them. And gradually I had someone else doing my technical stuff through 2011, and then after the Worlds in Slovenia, he took over the technical side of things as well, and kind of evolved into my fully fledged, like, did everything coach a year before London.
Wow, you must really appreciate having his support.
Yeah, and he puts up with a lot. I don't know if every coach would put up with I don't think that I could talk back as much if it were another coach. I mean, I have had coaches that aren't my parents, and I didn't talk back in the same way. But there are workouts where I say, Dad, this is impossible. Like, this is silly. You're having me do too much. Yeah. And there also are days, and especially more recently as I've been exposed to training with the Irish team and the Austrian team and seeing what other countries do, where I've said, this isn't enough. I think we need to add more.
He must be tough on you then.
He is, and we have banter and we go back and forth, and the great thing about having it be your parent is that they love you no matter what.
Right.
You have to. It's great.
Wow. So you mentioned 2008. Let's go back 8 years.
Yeah.
So take us there. When you first found out you worked to make the Beijing team and you didn't make it, what went through your head, and how did you get past that disappointment?
It was a long time coming. I actually confess I didn't stay through the final naming date. I had been in the camp system for a year, was in selection for the quad. Things were going pretty well in the fall. We got to California and had a bad week in the doubles, and then had a rib issue, an injury, and was out for 2 or 3 weeks. And by that time, those weeks out kind of put me at the bottom of the selection ranking. And not only was that hard to come back from, but erg scores are important in the camp system, and my erg score is not the fastest. Very aware of that. And I needed the on the water results in order to make an impact. So I could see things building. My parents could tell you that I called them crying from California a number of times that winter, and through the spring didn't go race the World Cup, which is kind of the test run or scrimmage for the Olympics in a way. I knew that it was a very good chance, and then came down with strep throat the week of our big erg test, did horribly, and after that had a frank conversation with the head coach and said, you know, like, we can both see the writing on the wall. I have an opportunity to go work at the summer camp I went to for the summer. Is it all right if I leave slightly before? Do you have enough people and this and that? And he was very nice about that and accommodating and said, yep, if you have another opportunity, go do it. You're starting med school in the fall anyway. And so I left, I think, 3 or 4 days before the official naming date of the quad, because it had been months of seeing that the writing, like, I was not doing well. It wasn't a surprise at the very end.
And what advice, if any, could you give to any aspiring athlete going through disappointment or failure?
I think the first step is to believe in yourself. I think reflecting on that year, I just graduated from college, and the college system is so different than the national team system. So all the training, I think, was somewhat wearing my body down physically, and then mentally being in competition every day for a seat at the Olympics was wearing as well and stressful. And especially as that injury happened in the winter and things like that, I lost faith in myself as a rower. And if something's going to happen, you have to believe it is going to happen. That doesn't mean that if you believe it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Right. There is hard work and a lot of other pieces in the puzzle, but I really don't think you can accomplish a big goal without believing that it's possible first. And I stopped believing that it was possible a few months before. And so once you give up on yourself, there's just no way.
No one left
so you have to believe in yourself.
Wow.
Yeah, you have to have the confidence.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah.
You're quite an inspiration.
Thanks.
An unbelievable story about a doctor and
Thanks.
an Olympic medalist. It's been great to have you, and it's great to see you. Look forward to where you're going to go next.
Thanks so much.